Hey, Applied English. Happy day 22. I'm sorry you can't see my face for this video. I'm not recording in one of my normal recording spots, so I'm not in my classroom. I'm not at my computer desk at home right now, so I just decided to leave my face out of it this time. I don't plan to make a habit out of that. I know that sometimes even just seeing a teacher's face is better than nothing, so I won't make a habit of this, but I just wanted to let you know why you can't see me. Let's pray, and we'll get into paragraph writing today. Lord Jesus, thank you for this day, and thank you for even the technology, the opportunity to teach kids, to teach my students online, and when the world's not in an ideal place. We want to pray, God, that you are helping us to do our best while we are online. I also want to pray, God, that you are watching over all of us so that we can come back to school safely when the time is right. We ask that you are blessing this upcoming weekend. We ask that you're giving us the rest we need so that we can recharge for the next week of school. And we pray this all in your name. Amen. So our only objective for today, and really our only video for today, is this one: organizing writing in paragraphs. So far, we've covered a lot with sentence writing, and you really know everything there is to know about how to write a sentence and add detail to a sentence. What's next is organizing sentences. It's using sentences to piece together paragraphs, well-written paragraphs, for the sake of answering a question specifically. That's what we're working through right now. We're in paragraph writing notes. This might be a slightly longer video than normal, just because I want to cover all the notes on paragraphing, as well as some of the directions on our paragraph practice assignment. I'm just going to try to wrap those all into this video. Please note that the paragraph practice assignment is not due until the end of the weekend. So if you find yourself exhausted after this lesson video and not quite ready to move on into writing your paragraph yet, just know that you have some time to get that complete. We'll look at that in a bit. If you want to challenge yourself, if paragraph writing is something that comes pretty naturally for you, or if it's something you find pretty simple, you can challenge yourself by trying to use all three sentence types, so making sure you have simple, compound, and complex sentences in your paragraph. You can also challenge yourself to use adjectives, adverbs, and prepositional phrases to add lots of detail to your paragraph. Again, we'll look at that assignment in a little bit here. You guys should know in our next lesson, our objective is going to be learning how to read an essay prompt. Really, the only lesson we'll need on paragraphing is this one, because it's not all that difficult to master. What's tougher is taking paragraphs and assembling them into essays. So we'll start the essay writing process next week. We'll spend really the next 3 weeks working on essay writing to make sure you're comfortable with writing your own essays. Let's look at paragraph writing notes. And as you notice right here, it says, please watch this video guide for writing paragraphs. You're watching the video now. Below the video is my PowerPoint. Yes, it is SpongeBob themed. You guys should know SpongeBob came out when I was 7. Came out in end of 1999, early 2000. So it came out when I was rather young. It might be one of the only pop culture things we actually share. Just because it came out when I was a kid and was still running when you were a kid as well. Below the PowerPoint is a copy of our notes packet as well, so I'll click view. It does say conversely, if you don't want to use the note packet I made, you can take notes in your own notebook. Again, these notes are not something that I'm going to be collecting, so to speak, but I do want you to have it or to have notes available as a resource for whenever you're paragraph writing, whether it's next week or next year. I want you to have access to your notes. So the notes packet looks a little bit like this. The formatting came out really big on Schoology, but just notice some blanks to fill in as we walk through today's PowerPoint, along with examples. So the nice thing about this note packet is that you always have access to good, well-written examples for specific types of sentences, which we piece together to form complete paragraphs. Let's look at that. Again, feel free to print this off, download it, write these things down in a notebook. But I'm going to be leading you through the notes themselves, the actual information in my PowerPoint. Alright, thanks for your patience with that little jump right there to get into our PowerPoint. How to organize a paragraph. Once again, SpongeBob themed. I wanted to tie it in with essay writing, or writing in general, with the classic essay episode, where SpongeBob he has to write an essay for his driver's ed class, and there's a montage where he's like, yeah, I'm doing it, and some of these, and all he has is the at the end of that montage. That classic SpongeBob joke. Let's go on. So the first step in writing a paragraph is writing what we would call the topic sentence. Every good paragraph begins with a sentence that introduces or sets up its central point. Especially within what we would call Western style writing, so American culture, European culture, the way that we write in general, we like to be very direct. So if we're responding to a question or a prompt, your first sentence should respond to it really clearly. So introduce or set up the central point of your paragraph. Generally, these sentences should be short and sweet. You don't want to waste a whole lot of time or space or add a lot of fluff into these sentences. You want to get right to the point in a topic sentence. So being clear and getting right to the point goes a long, long way with these. For all of our example slides or in this PowerPoint, I'm giving examples for maybe 3 different writing types. The first type is expository or narrative writing. Expository is a fancy term for explanation. So let's say you're writing a paragraph to explain something. It could be to explain something that you know. It could be to explain something you've experienced, like a narrative, where you're actually telling your story. Once again, a topic sentence should be short and sweet. We'll look at that in a moment. Persuasion is the other one. So maybe instead of explaining a concept, you're actually trying to convince your reader to think or do something. That would be persuasive writing. We'll look at that too. Third type is literary analysis. Since Spongebob is a TV show, it is technically a form of art. We can analyze it. We can discuss its meaning. We can discuss what's valuable about it. We can discuss the artistry of it. We can discuss themes and characterization and plot and setting and point of view and all those things that we've already studied for short stories. A literary analysis paragraph is just writing that explores the meaning of a piece of artwork, whether it's a short story or whether it's a TV series that went on for like 25 years. Nah, not 25 years. 20-ish years. SpongeBob SquarePants, exposition this time. SpongeBob SquarePants was the funniest and most memorable show of my childhood. So this one's a little more narrative. So say I'm writing a paragraph about the role of SpongeBob SquarePants in my life, right? Here, I've just set up my topic. In this paragraph, I'm going to talk about how it was funny and memorable for me. Notice that I did italicize SpongeBob SquarePants. Titles of longer works, books, TV series, movies get italicized. Let's try persuasion. Maybe I want to convince my readers not to watch SpongeBob SquarePants. Not that I believe that. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Today's children should not watch SpongeBob SquarePants because of its absurd disregard for physics. So I'm making the argument that since SpongeBob is so unrealistic, kids should not watch it. Well, again, I don't agree with that, but we'll see how we can develop that later on. Literary analysis. One of the themes of SpongeBob SquarePants is that friendship brings joy. So here I'm discussing themes. What's the meaning of SpongeBob SquarePants? What are the messages that it proclaims? One is that joy comes from friendship. Second step in writing a paragraph is to provide evidence. So since writing is about proving our ideas, every good paragraph includes evidence that supports the topic sentence. Evidence can be a variety of things. It could be examples. It could be examples from your own life that might prove something to be true. They could be examples from research, like if you're researching something on the internet. They could be logical arguments. It's really any sort of arguments you can make that prove the ideas in your topic sentence. The length of your paragraph is largely determined by how much evidence you give. So if you need length, or if you're one of those people who feels like your paragraph always seem rather short, providing more proof, adding in more evidence, is the easiest way to add in length. Again, just provide examples, improve, provide examples, improve, provide examples, improve. That's what builds in length on a body paragraph. We should also note evidence is always closely accompanied by what's called commentary, which is step 3 in writing a paragraph. So just know that evidence and commentary go hand in hand. You don't want evidence without commentary. You definitely don't want commentary without evidence. So let's continue with what we're already doing. For my narrative paragraph, again, I'm explaining how SpongeBob was a memorable TV series for me. Now I'm going to provide evidence. I'm going to go back for a moment here. I have to prove that SpongeBob was the funniest and most memorable show of my childhood. I might say something like this. I particularly remember watching the famous Time Machine episode on New Year's Eve as the year 2000 began. Notice here, I chose a specific memory I have, a specific moment that I remember in which SpongeBob was relevant for me. Again, it fits in well with my paragraph already, and yes, I am that old. You guys weren't alive in 2000, which is kind of a strange thing for me to say. That's okay. Persuasion. Again, I'm trying to argue that no one should watch SpongeBob in this one. How can I prove that? For instance, the famous Campfire song, C-A-M-P-F-I-R-E-S-O-N-G song, features a well-lit campfire burning at the bottom of the ocean. Now notice here, I haven't explained why this is a problem yet, but I'm just using a specific piece of evidence, an actual moment from an episode of SpongeBob. I'm going to explain in my commentary why that shows a disregard for physics. I think you guys can see why, even based in that piece of evidence there. Literary analysis, I'm trying to prove that friendship brings joy. An excellent example of a strong friendship is the one between SpongeBob and Patrick Star. So notice here, I haven't explained much about their friendship yet, but I am noting here that SpongeBob and Patrick as characters really demonstrate that theme of joy coming from friendship. The next step is to support that evidence with commentary. If we look at the evidence again, as we noted a moment ago, this evidence itself, although it does lead to proving our topic sentences, on their own, they don't quite prove them very well. We need to explain this evidence. So commentary is where your own personal writing voice comes into play. After each piece of evidence you provide, you'll want to explain its meaning or its relevance, why it's important, in 2 to 4 sentences. Anything less than 2 is too short. You need more explanation. You probably won't need to go more than 4 before you get too wordy on commentary. What you should remember is that commentary should clearly reflect the idea you established in your topic sentence. So once again, if I'm trying to prove that SpongeBob was memorable in my childhood, I'm going to use my evidence, use a memory I have, but then explain why that's a good memory for me too. They do need to connect. You don't want to contradict yourself. The other thing, once again, for length, you just want to repeat that evidence commentary process until you're ready to close out your paragraph. So if your paragraph feels small, maybe your teacher asks you for a 12-sentence paragraph and you've got 8. The way to get from 8 to 12 would be to provide another piece of evidence and then enough commentary to add that in. So it might be 1 piece of evidence, 1 sentence, 3 commentary sentences, and boom, you've turned 8 to 12 sentences. Here are some examples tying back to my narrative paragraph. As strange as the Time Machine episode was, it connected well with the incoming millennium. I also still laugh whenever I think of Squidward tentacles curling up and yelling, "Future!" It's kind of a strange moment from SpongeBob. In any case, notice that I've explained my piece of evidence there. I mentioned the Time Machine episode. Now I'm going to explain why the Time Machine episode was relevant for me. It was strange. It reminded me of the upcoming millennium. I was born in the 90s, so I remember when the millennium switched over to the 2000s. And it's also just a funny one, just because that episode has some really funny moments in it. Persuasion. It may seem obvious that fire can't exist underwater, but our children may begin to think otherwise. So now I'm making the "but think about the children" argument. Think about what a kid might think about the laws of physics if he or she watches SpongeBob. Plus, the song, this little side note here, the song itself is quite annoying. Once again, I don't agree with my own statements here. I really, really, really love SpongeBob SquarePants because it's something I grew up with. I'm just playing devil's advocate in that persuasive argument there. Literary analysis. We're talking about SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship. SpongeBob and Patrick embody the nautical nonsense described in the theme song. Notice that I use quotation marks here to actually tie it into the show's theme song. Between bubble blowing, jellyfishing, and even a trip to Glove World, these 2 characters bring joy into each other's lives. So there I've very directly connected my evidence to my topic sentence by mentioning friendship and joy in the same 2 sentences there. The last step in writing a body paragraph is the summary sentence. So every good paragraph closes with a sentence that conveniently summarizes the main point of the paragraph. This sentence may or may not be really similar to your topic sentence. It is okay to be a little bit repetitive. as you open and close body paragraphs especially, just because summarizing at the end of a paragraph is probably going to look pretty similar to other things that you've already written. It may or may not begin with a concluding transition, something like in conclusion, or in sum, or all in all, something like that. You'll have teachers who are okay with those, you'll have teachers who aren't. I'm kind of in the middle. I think it's a case-by-case basis. If it feels right, oftentimes I'll pop in conclusion, or an all in all, or an in summary, something like that. If it doesn't feel right, I leave it out. And notice that I used it for some here, and I left them out for some as well. For my narrative paragraph, I might go double back and say something like, I am glad to say that I will always have fond memories of watching Spongebob. Notice that this is the only paragraph example where I've used the pronoun I. Typically when we write formal things like essays and paragraphs, we want to leave first person out of it. But since this paragraph is narrative, it's explaining my own experiences, of course I'm going to be using I. Persuasion. All in all, here a transition felt right. Exposing our kids to SpongeBob will only cause them to decline in their understanding of science. Again, doubling back to my argument, watching SpongeBob makes kids dumber is my basic argument there. And literary analysis. The joy expressed in these key friendships is one of the main themes of SpongeBob. One thing I would note here, notice that I said these key friendships, but so far I've only mentioned one in my paragraph, right? That might be a paragraph that I would need to lengthen by using another friendship example. I might talk about SpongeBob and Sandy. I might talk about SpongeBob and Squidward, even though they're not friends, so to speak, quote-unquote friends. There's certainly some heartwarming moments between the two of them in the entire series. I could talk about the episode where Mr. Krabs starts dating Mrs. Puff. There's lots of options for me to continue with there. But notice, once again, I can always lengthen a paragraph. I can always develop it by including more evidence. I want you guys to see what happens when you put all four parts of a paragraph together. For each of these examples, I'm going to encourage you to maybe pause the video and read it aloud just to get a feel for how well these flow. I'll read them aloud as well, but I want you to try reading aloud first just to see how the flow works. Again, feel free to pause this video and read aloud. I'll read aloud in just a moment here. This is my expository or narrative paragraph here. SpongeBob SquarePants was the funniest and most memorable show of my childhood. I particularly remember watching the famous Time Machine episode on New Year's Eve as the year 2000 began. As strange as the episode was, it connected well with the incoming millennium. I also still laugh whenever I think of Squidward tentacles curling up and yelling, "Future." I am glad to say that I will always have fond memories of watching SpongeBob. So notice that that paragraph does feel good. It's got all four parts. My topic sentence is sentence 1. Piece of evidence is sentence 2. My commentary are sentences 3 and 4, so starting from as here and ending with future. And then I've got a summary sentence to close the paragraph. It is a 5-sentence paragraph, so it's rather small. Again, if I wanted to develop that further, I would just include more evidence and more commentary. I might bring up another episode. I might discuss my favorite moment or my favorite line in SpongeBob. Again, I've got lots of options on what I can do, but notice that as I add in more evidence and commentary, my paragraph gets longer. The persuasive paragraph. Again, feel free to pause the video and read this aloud, just so you can get a feel for it. I'll read it out loud in a moment anyway. Today's children should not watch SpongeBob SquarePants because of its absurd disregard for physics. For instance, the famous Campfire song features a well-lit campfire burning at the bottom of the ocean. It may seem obvious that fire can't exist underwater, but our children may begin to think otherwise. Plus, the song itself is quite annoying. All in all, exposing our kids to SpongeBob will only cause them to decline in their understanding of science. Again, I hope you see how well that paragraph flows. If I wanted to make it longer, I would include the piece of evidence about how SpongeBob somehow has a working faucet in his kitchen, even though he's underwater. Literary analysis. One of the themes, feel free to pause this video, try reading aloud before I read aloud. One of the themes of SpongeBob SquarePants is that friendship brings joy. An excellent example of a strong friendship is the one between SpongeBob and Patrick Star. SpongeBob and Patrick embody the nautical nonsense described in the theme song. Between bubble blowing, jellyfishing, and even a trip to Glove World, these two characters bring joy into each other's lives. The joy expressed in these key friendships is one of the main themes of SpongeBob. So again, I hope you notice how well these paragraphs flow. That's all I have for you there. So there's one more thing I want to show you. And I should note as well, again, use your notes. Have your notes available for you whenever you write, just to give you ideas. I do want to show you paragraph practice discussion here. Notice that I did include a longer deadline here. So 5th and 7th hour, you guys have till the end of Saturday for this one. So 3 days to complete this assignment. Even numbered classes, 6th and 8th hour, you guys have until the end of Sunday. So I'm giving all my classes 3 days to get this done. Let's look at it. Paragraph writing assignment here for you. Over the last week and a half, we've learned how to use the 8 parts of speech to construct sentences, as well as how to arrange sentences into paragraphs. To finish this week, we're going to put our paragraphing skills to the test by responding to one of the 2 prompts below. The key word there is one, so you can choose whether you respond to prompt 1 or prompt 2. The first one is, who is Jesus to you? In other words, what aspects of Christ stick out to you as a young believer? How might you describe your relationship with Jesus Christ? If you're not as big of a fan of prompt number 1, you can choose prompt number 2 instead. What is your favorite Bible verse or passage and why? How did you come across this verse or passage? So you can tell the story of how this verse came into your life. And you can discuss how it's impacted your life so far. Again, please reflect on just one of those 2 prompts above in a 6 to 10 sentence paragraph. So in order to get that length, 6 to 10 sentences, you will need the 4 parts of a paragraph, a topic sentence, some evidence, 2 pieces, basically guarantees that you'll get length on this one, commentary for each piece of evidence, and then a summary sentence. I'm grading this one as a 10-point summative assessment, so this is kind of our capstone for writing sentences and paragraphs. Of those 10 points, 6 of those are going for paragraph structure, what you just learned in this video. The other 4 are going for overall neatness and grammar. So again, spelling, capitalization, end marks, those kinds of things. For for 1 to 2 extra credit points, you are also allowed to reply to one of your classmates' paragraphs. In order to get a point or 2 there, your comment should be thoughtful and constructive. So thoughtful in the sense that it goes deeper than just I like this, or this is good, or I agree, or I disagree. It should also be constructive. So even if you're disagreeing, you want to explain why and stay respectful too. So agreements, respectful disagreements, observations, follow-up questions, those are all fair game if you're looking for a little bit of extra credit on this assignment. I will show you here, on a Schoology discussion, the place to type is where it says write comment. You should note that Schoology will not save this work for you as you're working. So if you plan to complete this in one sitting, you're fine to just type things into the comment bar and hit post once you're done. If you know that it might take you a couple of sittings to complete it, I actually recommend going to the school webpage, going to Office 365, and opening up a document in Word Online. Alright, so I've typed a little bit in Word Online right here, and notice that it says document saving up at the top right here. Saving is just telling me, and there's saved right there. So Word Online does auto-save my progress for me. So let's say as I'm working on my paragraph, my wife calls for me and says that she needs help with something. That means that I can come back to this later. Even if I have to close this out, I can come back to it later and continue it before I post it. Or if something bad happens, let's say my computer crashes while I'm working on my paragraph, I don't have to worry about losing my work because it's automatically auto-saved for me. Once I'm done, I can just copy-paste this. Control-C is copy. Go back into our discussion. Control-V is paste. There it is. And I would hit post just once I'm ready to post in there. Take your time on this paragraph. Again, you have 3 days to write it, so if you need to do some thinking before you write, that's fine. Once again, if you're going to write this in one sitting, it's fine to just type your post into the box and hit your comment into the box and hit post. If you know it might take you a couple of sittings to finish your paragraph, you should write it in Office 365 instead in Word Online. Best of luck to you as you write. Please don't be afraid to ask me questions if you get stuck.